Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Green Lewis, CPA and tax expert at TurboTax. I'm so excited to be here with TurboTax and Create and Cultivate to answer your tax questions and finance questions so you can file with confidence. If you're self-employed or own a small business and you've been affected by COVID-19, then you'll want to stick around. I'll be covering COVID-19 tax implications, including coronavirus relief programs, unemployment, tax relief credits, and much more. I hope to share guidance for small businesses and self employed like you to help you navigate your taxes during these uncertain times. Now, let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen with you. So it will take just a second. Let me get the presentation up for you. This is also, you are able to download this as well. And so again, we're going to go over, the tax implications of the events that happened last year. And also I want to share with you some resources and guidance for your business. So last year, there were 4 types of coronavirus relief available starting in March. And a lot of them, most of them had provisions that will really help you with your taxes. And I just want to highlight some of those provisions as well as the relief programs. So in March, we saw the CARES Act. And under the CARES Act, there were the first round of stimulus payments provided. There was relief as far as expanded unemployment. So, there was unemployment announced, and they also expanded it to self-employed, and this was new. So if you were self-employed, you were able to get unemployment for the first time. There were additional provisions that allowed you to deduct charitable contributions if you didn't itemize, as well as other other types of relief if you needed to take out of your retirement. And then came the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and you'll be really interested in that relief program because there are tax credits if you were sick or took care of a family member that was sick. You were able to get the qualified sick and family leave credits that can be worth thousands of dollars on your taxes. And then in December, we had the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act that passed. And that provided additional stimulus payments, more unemployment extensions and expansion. It provided expansion of the PPP loans as well. And then also a special look back provision for earned income tax credit, which that's a huge credit for a family with 3 kids. That is a credit of up to $6,660. So under this relief plan, you were able to do a look back and use your 2019 income if that helped you get more credit. And then most recently, last week, on March 11th, we had the American Rescue Plan, and that provided the next round of stimulus payments. So that stimulus payment was $1,400 if you were single, $2,800 married filing jointly, and then another $1,400 for your qualified dependents. And unlike the other stimulus relief plans, it allowed you to get $1,400 for your qualified dependent, even if they were adult. The other relief plans, they had to be under 17 years of age. Okay. There we go. So I talked a little bit about the tax relief credits, and these credits, so if you were impacted by coronavirus, for instance, if you were sick or your child was sick and you had to take off and you couldn't run your business, or even if your child's daycare was closed, you may be able to get these credits. And so the self-employed tax credit for sick leave, there is a cap on it. It's based on 10 days and it goes by your average net self-employment income. But all of these credits, you don't need to know all that. Intuit created a tax credit estimator. And so that is available on our TurboTax blog and our Self-Employed Coronavirus Relief Center. And you're able to access that estimator, and you'll be able to find out how much these credits will be on your taxes. Then in addition to that, when you use TurboTax Self-Employed, we have proactive guidance on all of these events that occurred last year, as well as the relief. So, we easily walk you through these credits as well as stimulus payments. And, you're able to see if you can qualify for these credits. And then under the relief plan, so the CARES Act passed the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, and that's where they expanded unemployment to if you're self-employed. And so one thing to remember in general, unemployment income is taxable. A lot of people didn't realize that, and you really needed your money and may not have withheld taxes, but no worry there. One thing I like to point out, when you receive unemployment income, your income may be lower than it was before. So you may be eligible for some income-based tax credits and deductions, like the earned income tax credit that we talked a little bit about, or the child and dependent care credit. Most people are eligible, but it's on a sliding scale. So the lower your income, the more you can get. So just giving you an example, and then, there was a multitude of relief for people based on the things that happened last year. And then one thing to call out, under the new relief program that just passed last week, the American Rescue Plan, there is a provision that allows you not to pay taxes on the first $10,200 of your unemployment income if you earn under $150,000. So that provision is in place, and so you won't be taxed on that first $10,200. And then I want to highlight some key resources with TurboTax that will be really helpful for you. Our Self-Employed Coronavirus Relief Center. We have tax tips available, tax advice. We're keeping it up to date with the latest coronavirus relief, so you can stay up to date on the provisions passed. Also, our Coronavirus Tax Center, it has information that is kept up to date, as well as tools. And also, I didn't mention the Self-Employed Coronavirus Relief Center. It has the tax credit estimator on there. So you can go there and figure out how much your tax credits could be if you were impacted by coronavirus. And then our expert advice. So TurboTax, it easily guides you through your taxes, and TurboTax Self-Employed, it looks for industry specific deductions so you can maximize your return and get back the most that you deserve on your tax return. But if you have questions, we have our TurboTax Live Self-Employed tax experts, and they can answer your questions along the way while you do your taxes. Or new this year, you can fully hand over your taxes to them and from the comfort of your home. And then you're also able to be matched up with a tax expert that specializes in self-employment taxes. So, it's really great that you're able to connect with someone that knows self-employment taxes, knows all the ins and outs, and knows the tax deductions that are relevant to your industry. And then that is it. I'm going to be looking forward to your questions that you ask, and we're going to answer some of those live as well. And I just, I want to thank everyone for coming today to the workshop dedicated to COVID-19 relief. I hope I was able to share some valuable tips with you. And then be sure to tune in for the first session of Finances First Money Managed Tips for Startups. And we'll get to answer all your questions about your being self-employed and learn how to prioritize your finances. Okay, I see some questions coming in. So Megan asks, she says, I collected unemployment for 1 month and I had money withheld for taxes. It was less than 10,200 total. How do I get that money back? So I think you're asking, how do you get your withholding back? When you file your taxes, you'll be able to possibly get that withholding back. It also depends on other income that you made, because that's going to be combined with your unemployment income. But that is where you may see a tax refund. And then especially with all the relief that was available, all the tax credits and deductions that are available, you may see that come back to you. Okay, another question. Will we be receiving a 1099 for PPP loans and stimulus checks? So the first thing you need to know is stimulus is not taxable. You will not receive a 1099 for that. Stimulus is tax-free. And if you receive too much, you don't have to pay it back. But one thing to know, if you didn't get enough, you're able to claim more of the stimulus when you file your 2020 taxes as a recovery rebate credit. So keep that in mind. And I know some people that have dependents or they had a baby in 2020, they may be eligible for more stimulus, or it's a recovery rebate credit on your 2020 taxes. And then there was a two-part question, a 1099 for the PPP loan. So it is a loan. So you won't receive a 1099 for that. I think you may be asking if it was forgiven. They are forgiving PPP loans if you use them for expenses, the normal expenses to run your business. And so usually when debt is forgiven, it's included in your income, but under the provisions, the coronavirus relief provisions, they are not taxing that forgiven debt. So you will not receive a 1099 for that. Somebody's asking about the second wave of PPP. Will that be taxed? It's the same. As the provisions rolled out, they just did an extension of the PPP loans. They either extended them to more people or provided more funding, and it has the same rules. If that loan is forgiven and you used it for the expenses that were intended for the PPP loan, then you are not required to include that in your income. Okay, lots of questions coming in. How should I navigate my taxes if I know I'll be getting a revised W-2 from my employer? So if you know you're getting a revised W-2 from your employer, I would, wait to get that W-2, but there are ways. I mean, a lot of companies have ways you can either access your W-2 online, so you may be able to access your revised W-2 online, or TurboTax. We work with hundreds of financial institutions and payroll providers. So there may be a way to automatically upload your W-2 when you go into TurboTax and do your taxes. Let's see, can you write off a portion of your home from working from home this year? That is a very common question. One thing to point out, I know people that are W-2 employees had to work from home. And one thing to remember, after tax reform, so starting in tax year 2018, employees can no longer write off unreimbursed employee expenses on their federal taxes. If you're self-employed, which I know many of you are self-employed, you can write off your home office as a home office deduction. And that's one of the biggest deductions that self-employed can get. You know, it's a portion of your rent, your mortgage interest, property taxes, utilities. So that is a huge deduction for you. It has to be a dedicated space in your home. So it can't be your kitchen table where your family eats and where your kids do homework. It has to be a dedicated space. See. For someone who just started a new business in 2020, would you recommend filing all the expenses that have been made for this business's tax season, even though they haven't started making profits? Or would it be possible to file those expenses for 2021? If those expenses are for 2020, you should file them. If you're not making money, I mean, the IRS does realize people that are just starting a business may not be making a profit. So you could deduct those expenses. IRS looks at, you know, if it's been a couple of years you're not making money, they may look at your business as a hobby and not an actual business. So that's one thing to think about. Does the family COVID relief work for people you live with, such as roommates who were sick? So you had to quarantine and not work? Yes. So the qualified sick and family leave credits are also related to if you had to quarantine. So that would qualify. Another question about business losses. If a business has taken a loss before, would it be wise to continue to write off expenses to show another year of loss? I think in your first years of business, you know, it's okay. The IRS, they do start looking at if you have multiple years of losses, they may, you know, want to evaluate and see if you really are conducting it to make an income or if it's a hobby. Someone said, I freelanced out of my house for 3 months in 2020, but then landed a full time job. When I file my taxes, can I still file under self employed even if I freelance for a couple of months? Absolutely. You would still use TurboTax self employed. And with TurboTax self employed, you could file your um, you know, your income and your expenses on Schedule C for your self-employment, and then you can also file your W-2 income. So both of those, and it will guide you through both of those situations. Okay, somebody says, what does self-employed mean? 1099 only? Can you be a freelancer, be 1099 W-2? Is that considered self-employed or is it only if you own a business? So self-employed, you're self-employed whether you work a side gig, you freelance. If you're doing a business on your own to make money and you don't have an employer, you're considered self-employed. And so your income would be reported on a 1099. New this year, it's 1099 NEC. It used to be 1099 Miss, but they changed that form. Your income's not reported on that form unless it's $600 or more. So even if you made under that, you still have to claim that income. And you pay self-employment taxes if your net income is $400 or more. Oh, and somebody just asked, do we have to report earnings for 1099s under 600 or making under 600? Yes, you'd still have to report your income under 600. And if your net self-employment income is $400 or less, you have to file a Schedule SE. That's for your self-employment taxes. And TurboTax guides you through all of that. You don't have to know the forms or the right calculations, it does all the calculations on the back end. And one thing to note too, your self-employment taxes, half of them are deductible on your Schedule C. Can you still write off your home office if you were unable to pay rent for any portion of the year due to COVID-19? I would say if it was a portion of the year and you were working in a home, you should still be able to take that deduction. It would just be the portion of the rent. You could not add that in the calculation since you didn't pay the rent out. But, if you worked part of the year and you paid your utilities and other expenses related to that portion of your home that's used for the office, then you should be able to deduct that. Is TurboTax self-employed recommended when you have a partner in business? We split 50-50. So partners, yeah, for a partnership, it depends on what type of business entity, but some partnerships, the income flows through to your personal tax return. So if that's the case, you would still be able to use TurboTax on your personal income. First time filing as a LLC, what do I need to prepare? If you're in, oh, someone's answering that for me. Okay. What do you do in the instance that a 1099 was not sent by a client? Um, I would definitely try to contact them and get the 1099 information. Um, they could possibly be a provider that is in partnership with TurboTax. You could try to see if the information uploads when you do your taxes with TurboTax. So that's a possibility as well. And if not, when you're self-employed, you should track your income and expenses. So hopefully you have that income tracked. And then another alternative is the IRS does get copies of the 1099 forms. So you can ask for a transcript of what they have for your 2020 taxes. Someone asked, can I be assigned my own CPA through TurboTax that I can work with throughout the year to help me quarterly? And yes, so our TurboTax self-employed, our TurboTax Live self-employed tax experts are available year round. I know self-employed come up with a lot of questions, especially around estimated taxes, and it is possible to get matched up with the same person. Somebody asked, now that the American Rescue Plan allows taxpayers to be exempt on the first 10,200, what should you do if you already filed your taxes? Will TurboTax be up to date soon? Um, so yes, our product will be up to date with the change that was in the provision that just passed last week. By the end of day, it should be by the end of day tomorrow. As far as whether if you already filed, whether you should amend or not, we are still waiting for IRS guidance on people that already filed, but we will be staying up to date on that. And you could check our TurboTax blog or our self-employed coronavirus relief center, as well as our coronavirus tax center. And we will have the most up-to-date information as soon as IRS comes out with guidance. Somebody's asking, are we able to download the PowerPoint from today? Yeah, you are able to download. You should be able to go to Create and Cultivate site to be able to download. Somebody said, what if someone refuses to give you 1099 info? Hopefully you have the income amount that you made from whatever job you freelance, so that you have that tracked. And then also I would try to get an IRS transcript of what forms they received as well. Also, I mean, if you did work for someone, payers are required to issue those forms if you made $600 or more. Can TurboTax Live just do my, can a TurboTax Live expert just do taxes for me? Yes, they can. New this year, you can fully hand over your taxes to a TurboTax Live tax expert, and they can do your taxes from start to finish. You don't need to leave home or go anywhere. It's very easy to do. They said if we start our return now and complete at a later date, will tax policy updates automatically apply? So if you start now, I know TurboTax, we are already updating for what's passed in the American Rescue Plan. So when you go to TurboTax online, it will be updated. There's many provisions in the law, but we are working on the updates. So if you come back at a later date, it will be updated. Somebody said, if me and my partner both use the same home office space, can we both notate it as an expense? How does that work? We file separately. Yes, if you both use the space and it's directly related to your business, you're both using the same amount of space and the same expenses. So I would, yeah, you should be able to deduct that on your taxes. If you guys are separating the costs, now you file separately. If you're separating the cost of like your rent or home mortgage interest and it's divided between you, then those expenses should be divided up. And I think we're at time for the workshop. I want to thank everybody for your questions. I hope that I was able to help you save money on your taxes and help you navigate your taxes in these uncertain times. And again, be sure to tune in for our next session of Finances First Money Management Tips for Startups and Solopreneurs, where you'll get more answers about being a solopreneur, and you'll get answers to tax questions and learn how to prioritize your taxes and finances.